The Need for Speed series has many defining characteristics that make it stand out from other games in the racing video game genre. Whether it be the car customization that made its debut in Underground thanks to the sudden rise in popularity that import tuner culture had in the early 2000s, or the fact that a Need for Speed game could make cars like the ones we see and drive every day interesting to talk about, or the fact that given a lot of Need for Speed games feature some form of illegal street racing, the law will inevitably try to stop us. And we aren't just going to pull over to the side of the road and accept a ticket. That last point of street racers versus the police has been with the series for a good while now. Although Need for Speed had its own street racers versus police branch of games, beginning with Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit and the sequel in the Hot Pursuit series, Hot Pursuit 2, it was what's considered a main installment of the series nowadays, 2005's Need for Speed Most Wanted, that really emphasized street racers being able to wage vehicular war with the police in this series. From this point on, aside from the spin-off games where the racing took to the tracks rather than the streets, most Need for Speed games would feature the presence of the police, and that would often be one of the main reasons why people would buy future Need for Speed entries, to be able to wage that vehicular war with the police. In terms of the pure street racer versus police aspect though, I would argue that the best game in the series to focus on this aspect is what is considered by many nowadays a spin-off or a side entry. Despite it being considered as such though, this game in question not only emphasizes the street racer versus police aspect brilliantly, it's also just an amazing racing video game in general. I'm just gonna say this right now. I love the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit reboot. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is one of my all-time favorite racing video games, allowing me to play as either a racer or a cop engaging in intense races in these expensive supercars and well-crafted car combat, while either fighting to win the race or bust the racers before the event ends. It is a Need for Speed game, let alone racing game, like none other. Alright, enough about me fanboying about this game. Why do I love it so much? And why do I consider this to be a fantastic racing game? Firstly, let's start with the most important part of any racing video game: the map/tracks and car physics. Do they match? Rather than having cars that are tuned for the cities like in 05 Most Wanted and Carbon where they could make sharper turns easier, Hot Pursuit features cars that have some weight to them. These machines are a lot heavier compared to cars from the other titles. This makes it so that they can't perform sharp turns as fluently or easily compared to earlier titles, especially since when these machines get up to speed, they do not want to slow down. Thankfully, Hot Pursuit does its map and physics combo perfectly. The map itself accommodates this by having the roads be wide, giving you lots of room to maneuver around things like traffic. Speaking of traffic, the traffic is sparse, and most of the time you're able to have enough time to dodge it, be it on a straight or even in the middle of a turn. The turns in this game encourage drifting in place of making sharp turns, and in general, corners are super fun to take in this game thanks to this game's drifting mechanic. The straights allow you to gain speed and maintain it until the next corner, and the game's sense of speed is really good as well. In this game, there are also shortcuts and alternate paths that allow you to be able to get to the finish line faster or take an alternate route to dodge things like traffic or the police. And those paths are also wide in order to accommodate for how the cars behave in this game. In general, the map and physics of the car go hand in hand, and thus the core racing experience is amazing. In this game, you complete events as either a racer or a cop as you progress your way through different events for both sides and earn XP, which in this game is called Bounty, that enables you to rank up and get more cars. Starting off with the progression system, this game nails it right on the head. As you earn Bounty, this bar will fill up based on the experience points you've acquired by the end of an event. Not only do you acquire Bounty from finishing well in events, you can also gain Bounty from your actions during the events themselves. Taking the lead in a race, drifting a certain distance, driving in the oncoming lane a certain distance, slamming into your opponents, scoring a hit with your pursuit tech, which we'll get into that in a little bit. Even if you mess up and make a contact with a civilian car as a racer, you get bounty from that in the form of cost to state. This results in a very rewarding XP system that encourages you to be as risky and dangerous out on the roads as you can. You can play it safe if you want to, but not only will that slow down your progression, it's also just way more fun to take those risks and be be that dangerous driver out on the roads in this game. On the note of driving dangerously, the way the nitrous works in this game is different depending on whether you're playing as a racer or a cop. If you play as a racer, you refill nitrous by performing those dangerous moves, as the nitrous will not refill on its own. Meanwhile, when you play as a cop, the nitrous refills on its own over time, but you can immediately refill it all the way upon taking down a racer. The nitrous itself also behaves differently. Both the racer and cop have nitrous that have a balance between top speed and acceleration for the slower vehicles, but by the time you get to the faster vehicles, while the racer's nitrous still has that top speed acceleration mix, the cops go fully for the acceleration for their late game vehicles. This makes sense, as the racers have the goal of maintaining a high speed at all times, meanwhile the cops may come across situations that require them to slow down to score a hit on a racer or bust them. Their nitrous allows them to get back up to speed so they don't spend half of the event catching back up to the pack. During your progress of ranking up, you're able to get new cars very frequently, and this frequency is consistent to the very end when you unlock the last car, which makes for a very satisfying system where you're earning new things and making progress after every event. In the original game, there was already plenty of content to work towards. Here, however, due to the game's DLC being included as part of the main package with this remaster, this adds a huge amount of additional content for this game, which is downright amazing. Wait, a pro-consumer decision from EA? The cars themselves are balanced in an interesting but really good way that ensures that no cars are blatantly more powerful than the others in an event, or that no car from one category can just wipe the field with other cars of a lower category. In Hot Pursuit, cars are split into these 6 classes, and all of the events in this game feature only one class of car for their event. For example, one event will only have cars from the sports car class, while another will only have cars from the hypercar class. This ensures that each event is balanced. For example, a car from the hyperclass can't go into an event with sports cars and decimate them. This applies for the cops as well, as they can only bring cars from the specified car class in their own events, and they can only bring the same class the racers are using for any pursuits, meaning the events where racers and cops clash are balanced as well. While there are cars that are better than others within a class, they all have roughly the same stats without any major differences between each other. In other words, it's feasible to win an event with every car in the game. This helps the game maintain a really good balance as a result. Speaking of the cars themselves, way back in late February 2021, a couple of months after the game's initial release of November 2020, this game got an update that included not only a graphics upgrade for the PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One X, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series X, but also a wrap editor. This allows players to visually customize their cars with a system that's very similar to Need for Speed Heat's system, where you're given options of different shapes, stickers, emblems, etc. to place on the car and play around with them further from there. However, while don't get me wrong, a customization system like this in the Hot Pursuit remaster is quite amazing to see, there are a few things that need to be pointed out here. 1. This was added 3.5 months from when the game first came out in November 2020. I'm not entirely sure why this wasn't included from the start, as I feel like if it was, it would have given people another reason to want to buy the remaster when it was released. In the original, the only thing you could customize is the color of the car from a predetermined list. Here, you can not only change the color and now the specific style of paint you want, but also make the car your own with the wrap editor. That being said, number 2, this is just a wrap editor. There's no in-depth car customization where you can equip new body kits, spoilers, wheels, hoods, etc. 3, and this is the largest flaw of the editor in my opinion, there is no system that allows you to quickly slap on a cool looking design from a community tab and be on your way. A good portion of the player base either doesn't have the time or energy to spend an hour plus designing their livery for one specific car. Let's face it, people like it when they can get the best results while doing the minimum amount of work. Games such as Need for Speed Heat know this, as while the actual editor itself is for the more dedicated designers out there, the fact that people can upload their designs to the community means that you can scroll through some designs, see the one you like best, and slap it onto your car in just a few button presses. Another example can be found with Need for Speed Carbon. With the introduction of being able to move, adjust the scale of, rotate, and skew the vinyls, This allowed the more dedicated designers to have a field day. However, for those who want a good-looking car in the quickest time possible, Carbon caters to that crowd too through things like body wrap vinyls, or vinyls where you don't have to piece together and color individual shapes and fit them together like pieces to a puzzle. Here in the Hot Pursuit remaster, however, if you want to have your own design, you have to do it from scratch. Don't get me wrong, I know how super satisfying it is to make your own design that took possibly hours of your day to make. However, a good percentage of us either don't have the time or energy to make this happen. With the community tab, you're able to not only get your car performing like a beast, but looking like a beast too in minutes rather than hours. The best that Hot Pursuit offers for its own liveries are race car wraps that would fit right in with Hot Wheels Unleashed. The worst part is, it's basically the exact same 4 designs for all of the cars in the game here. You got your orange wrap, your red wrap, your blue wrap, and your green wrap for every single car. This obviously isn't a huge deal at the end of the day, as I'd much rather have a game that plays well and is addicting rather than a terribly playing game, but hey, look, the customization system rocks. But for those of us who can't dedicate hours of our time into something like this, it can be a little disheartening. Okay, enough about the cars. Let's talk about the events. There are 6 events for racers and 4 for the police. Racers have races, time trials, duels, gauntlets, previews, and hot pursuits. Races are sprint races where you get from point A to point B with the goal of getting there first out of a field of cars. Time trials ask you to get from point A to B in the fastest time possible. Duels are sprint races but with just one other car instead of there being a field of them. Gauntlets are time trials but with the police trying to stop you. Preview events allow you to get your hands on some of the later endgame cars briefly to let you have a taste of what you'll be able to drive when you progress further in the game. So just a copy-paste of time trials but with more flashy cars. And lastly, hot pursuits, where you're in a race with a field of other racers and the police are hot on your tail, using all available assets to stop you. All of these modes serve their purpose well and have no fundamental flaws to them, with the hot pursuit mode being my personal favorite for very obvious reasons. For the cops, they have interceptions, rapid responses, previews, and hot pursuits. Interceptions pit you against one other car with the objective being to stop that car in the quickest time possible. Rapid responses are just time trials, but with one addition. That addition being any collisions with traffic or the walls will add time penalties. Previews are just a copy-paste of rapid responses, but with the endgame cars again. And hot pursuits, which ask you to bust all the racers before the race ends. Now, for the cops and their modes, it's a bit of a different story. 2 of the police modes, half of their offering, have what I consider to be a fundamental flaw, specifically with the rapid response and preview events. Both of these modes are the exact same thing, but with the latter having more flashy vehicles. The fact it's just the same modes as the racer, but with police window dressing, isn't the issue for me. The issue I have with these modes are the time penalties for slamming into traffic or the walls. I'm assuming that the time penalty difference between the racers and the police is because as a cop, you're expected to be held to a higher standard than a low-life street racer, but as a cop, you essentially do legalize street racing behavior on the road? I get that in this instance, the police have to fight fire with fire, but still, like, hello? So, why do I have an issue with this mechanic of the time penalties? My issue with this mechanic is that because of this, a decent part of your performance in the cop preview and rapid response modes is at the mercy of the RNG gods. Take a tight turn and there just so happens to be a car on the other side at that precise moment in time? Too bad. About to take a shortcut, but a car in the other lane just so happens to be right at the entrance to it, preventing you from taking it and therefore making your overall time worse? Sucks to be you. Coming out of a shortcut, but there's a car right at that exit which causes you to slam into it? Feels bad, man. Do you see what I'm getting at here? In any of those examples, there could have not been a car there, and thus the end result would have been better. But because there just so happened to be a car on the way there, you get unlucky. Now, taking a corner incorrectly, botching the entry or exit of a shortcut when there's no traffic blocking the way, or failing to dodge traffic on a straight when you have ample time to react, that is all on you. I understand that in any racing game set in an illegal street racing environment like this, traffic is inevitable. RNG traffic is just sort of part of the formula for these kinds of games nowadays. However, that doesn't stop it from being infuriating to have to retry a rapid response or cop preview event because you got unlucky rather than failed at a test of skill. Now, some of you watching may say that by this logic, all of the other events in this game are RNG based due to traffic. While yes, traffic is a factor in all of the events, they don't have as much of an impact on the end result of an event as they do with the rapid response or cop preview events. No matter how many times you bump into a wall or traffic in any other event, you still have a chance to win in most instances. You can bump into traffic or the walls all you want halfway through the event and still have a statistical chance of winning it. Whether it's plausible depends on many factors, but statistically and mathematically speaking, it's still possible. However, if you bump into the wall or traffic too many times in a rapid response or cop preview event, your run is essentially over, at least if you're aiming to get the gold. At that point, there's no possible chance of winning the gold. It can be annoying if this is due to personal error, but something like this due to the traffic RNG gods not liking you that particular run can be infuriating. And in this particular instance, it really sucks because the cops have no mode to match up with the race, duel, and gauntlet mode for the racers. As a result, the police don't have as much variety in their events, which means that during the cop campaign, you'll be running into these events more frequently, which means more potential RNG nonsense. The big saving grace for the cop campaign is that the interceptor and hot pursuit events for them are super fun, and those latter two modes have no fundamental flaws to them. Sure, the races themselves are fun, and the time trials can be either regular time trials with great driving mechanics, a time trial with the police trying to stop you, or RNG messes depending on the faction, but where the real fun begins is when the cops and racers clash on the road in intense car combat. This is what Hot Pursuit is most remembered for, kicking the pursuits into high gear and delivering heart-pounding, intense racing action that hardly allows anyone a second to breathe. The big batch of items that enable the pursuits to be this intense, in my opinion at least, as I know some Need for Speed fans aren't big fans of these, are the pursuit tech items. In the game, there are a number of items that both racers and cops can use against each other during an event. Racers get a turbo boost, which allows for a big boost to speed for a brief moment, and a jammer to disrupt any police abilities. Cops get helicopter support that drops spike strips ahead of the road to stop the racers, and roadblocks that are also deployed ahead of the action. Both sides get their own set of spike strips that are deployed from the rear of the car, and an EMP system that enables them to lock onto a car ahead and deal some ranged damage. Quick side note, the sound effect of the EMP hitting its target is so beautiful.
Detecting an EMP lock signal. Take evasive maneuvers.
It's like the M1 Garand ping in terms of beautiful sounds to me. Oh, I think I just can't. What's interesting about the pursuit tech is how it's all balanced. The balance between each of the items themselves vary. For example, roadblocks are very strong in this game, to the point where they become regular damage points on the road for racers more so than blocks with an actual chance of running through them. Yeah, there is a gap that racers can aim for, but 9 times out of 10, you'll at least tap the front end of one of the cars through the gap anyway. Either that, or your free trial of living expires. Meanwhile, the helicopter isn't as effective in stopping racers in comparison, to give an example. However, the problem of balance is solved here because in these events, you don't get to choose what pursuit tech you have. The game chooses for you, and you have to roll with what you're given. Combine that with each of the abilities having their own unique cooldown timers, and this ensures that all of the abilities will be used for either side. And in the grand scheme of things, nothing is overpowered. Spike strips from the rear of the car or a helicopter can be dodged with a quick enough reaction time of slowing down and turning, or using the jammer. EMPs can be countered with jammers, or slowing down to let the car behind you pass, or the cheekiest counter I've seen, using spike strips on the car locking onto you. Roadblocks are... Well, with roadblocks, there's no real way you can counter them other than if the cop calls it in where there's a shortcut or alternate path available. Other than that, you're kind of screwed. Though there will be those few moments where you successfully thread the needle through a roadblock, and let me tell you, when that happens, it feels so freaking good. Each of the pursuit tech items has upgrades available to them, with the criteria being to simply use the pursuit tech item in question. You get EMP upgrades for scoring hits with the EMP. You get spike strip upgrades for scoring hits with spike strips. You get the idea. These upgrades can be wider spike strips and being able to deploy 2 of them at once, to a longer range with the EMP, to a longer time time on station for the police helicopter, meaning more spike strips are dropped, to more beefy police vehicles for roadblocks, to a longer duration for when a jammer or a turbo is used. You get the idea. It's not a super in-depth upgrade system, as the upgrades are given to you automatically once you hit the milestones, and it only goes up to tier 3 for each of them, but it's still a nice additional incentive to use the pursuit tech. Personally, I feel that the pursuit tech is a great addition to this game. Again, I know that not all Need for Speed fans think the same, and I can respect your opinion if you're not too big on the pursuit tech. Of course, there's also the tried and true method of just slamming into another car with your own, which is crucial to the game's car combat. Combine the car melee combat with the pursuit tech, and you'll quickly be finding success out on the streets. That success isn't just going to be handed to you though, as the AI in Hot Pursuit will absolutely put up a fight when the situation calls for it. This can be found when the racers and police clash on the roads. When playing as a racer, the police will use all of the available pursuit tech against you, and they can deliver some brutal shunts if they close the gap on you. When playing as a cop, the racers won't be afraid to do the same, utilizing all of their pursuit tech to stop you and trying to shove you off the road when you close the gap with them. This adds to the thrilling gameplay, as you not only have to keep your eyes on the road, but also contend with knowing when to use a pursuit tech item, or spotting a gap in traffic to slam into a cop or a racer, to give 2 examples. On the visuals and audio front, given that this is a remaster, Hot Pursuit Remastered does feature graphical and sound improvements, albeit very small ones. Similar to Burnout Paradise Remastered, minimal upgrades were introduced here, although I do love the fact that, like with Burnout Paradise Remastered, here Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered can now also be played at 60 frames per second. On the audio front, the sound of the cars getting up to speed is great. The sound of cars slamming into one another is satisfying. The use of the pursuit tech gives satisfying audio feedback. It is beautiful. And I want to take a note of the music, as this is the very definition of an underrated soundtrack. While the game's licensed songs that are played in races, time trials, preview, and rapid response events are nice, I personally prefer the original soundtrack composed by Marios Takaushis? Oh god, I butchered that name. And Vanessa Lorena. This music deserves more recognition, as it perfectly adds to the action when the racers and cops clash on the roads. Hot Pursuit's single-player offering is amazing. Tons of content, replayability to try out new cars, and addictingly satisfying driving and car combat all combine to make a truly excellent Need for Speed game and racing game as a whole. This game's single-player offering would already be enough to warrant buying it. However, Hot Pursuit's multiplayer has been included here as well, and it is super fun. The multiplayer events to choose from here are Race, Interception, Hot Pursuit, Most Wanted, and Arms Race. Race, Interception, and Hot Pursuit events have the same overall objectives as they do in the single player. Races task you with finishing first among a field of cars, interceptions task the racer to escape the one cop chasing them, and the cop is tasked with busting the racer. And Hot Pursuit tasks the racers to race to the finish, while the cops have to bust all the racers before they can finish. The two new modes here are Most Wanted and Arms Race. Most Wanted is another racers versus cops mode where one of the racers gets designated as the most most wanted. The other racers have to defend the most wanted, while the cops have to bust the most wanted to win. Arms Race is an all racers mode where you all race to the finish once again, but this time everyone has access to pursuit tech. The clean racing in the usual race mode doesn't apply here, as everyone is encouraged to be aggressive and to take each other out in order to get the best finishing position. As a quick heads up, when recording gameplay for this review, I did not get a chance to record any multiplayer race or interception events. I didn't come across or initiate any race events because the events where I got to initiate car combat with other people stood out more. I'm gonna be fully transparent there, I'm not gonna lie. As for the interception events, I couldn't find anyone willing for a 1 versus 1 event. Race events are straightforward as everyone races to the line. Interception events are the 1v1 type of event where the racer and cop try to outsmart each other. Some games can last for only a minute or two, meanwhile other games can last for quite a long time given that there's no time limit to these events, with there being no finish line. Hot Pursuits are where things get really crazy. In the multiplayer version of Hot Pursuit, it's up to 4 cops chasing a group of up to 4 racers. The pursuit tech in multiplayer works a little differently from a balancing perspective. Everyone has their own personal pool of pursuit tech items, but when someone from either side uses a pursuit tech item, everyone on that side experiences the same cooldown timer. For example, all of the players playing as the police in the game may start out with 2 roadblocks each to call in. Player A calls in a roadblock, leaving them with only 1 use of roadblocks left. Players B, C, and D all still have 2 roadblocks they can each call in, but they also have to wait for the cooldown timer to pass before they can call in a roadblock. Making everyone go through a cooldown timer for a pursuit tech item is done to prevent spam, which is genius game design. This ensures that the action is still intense, but also fairly balanced. Most wanted events can either be really short or go on for an extended length of time depending on how good either side is. Keep in mind, all the cops need to do to win in this mode is bust the most wanted. So, if the most wanted's escorts are lacking, most wanted games can end in as little as a minute or 2. If the cops are lacking though, the same thing can happen with the game ending in a minute or 2 as the most wanted drives off and leaves everybody behind. Though if both sides bring their A game, this is where the mode truly shines, as it becomes a matter of either dodging all the hits you can while trying to escape, sticking with the most wanted and guarding them as best you can, or trying to get those hits in while you can as a cop. Arms Race is the very definition of it being everyone for themselves. Whatever friendships may have been developed previously goes out the window here. You have a health bar above your car, the other people have health bars above their cars, you've got pursuit tech available to you, you are tasked with getting into first place, it's on. While no players play as the police in Arms Race, the police will set up the occasional roadblock and call in the occasional helicopter to shake things up a bit. The core focus is still the racers fighting one another as they race to the finish though. Another neat thing to point out about the multiplayer is that the progression is shared between the single and multiplayer, meaning in the single player you can reach max rank for both the racer and cop sides, unlock all the cars for both sides, get the tier 3 upgrades for all the pursuit tech items, then dive into the multiplayer with everything unlocked. Though if you wish to go down another path, bounty earned in multiplayer can still contribute to your progression if you want to do that. The gameplay of these events can vary wildly. One event you may be out in front only having to thread the needle through a roadblock or 2 and dodge some helicopter spike strips, while in another event you're in the thick of it getting physical with everybody. One event you'll be aiming to get the gold, another event you'll just be aiming to survive. It says something about how brilliant Hot Pursuits' gameplay design is, where even in cases where I'm just looking to survive, not even concerned with finishing well, I can still have lots of fun. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit is a fantastic racing game where the map and the physics of the car go together beautifully, there's addicting gameplay with an amazing car combat system, lots of replay value with there being tons of different cars to try out, and a super fun multiplayer side where things can get absolutely crazy, yet still be super fun. If you haven't picked this game up yet, even 2 years later from when it was released, there's still a lot of fun to be had here. Like I said earlier, the single player content alone is worth picking this game up, but I'm super grateful that the multiplayer is super fun as well. You get some updated graphics, even if admittedly the graphical overhaul itself isn't a huge one. You're also able to get all of the DLC included with this remaster for free. You're able to harness the power of a PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One X, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, or a beefy PC to get 4K 60 FPS, which makes the game run so much better, and you get crossplay for the multiplayer, just to name a few reasons why you should get Hot Pursuit Remastered even if you own a copy of the original 2010 release. Despite being considered a spin-off title for the series, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered is a super fun racing game that will continue to be one of my favorite racing video games of all time. Here we are at the end of the video, where now it's your turn to give your thoughts. What do you think of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered? Do you love it the same way that I do? Are you perhaps not as much of a fan? Do you have praise or criticism for the game that I may not have pointed out? Let's get a discussion going on in the comments below. I'm interested to see what you all think. With that being said, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, drop a comment, and if video game reviews and essays are a type of content you enjoy here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to hit that bell icon to receive all notifications for future uploads. Until next time, this is Thunderous Fulf, signing off.